Hello. So I've
Hello.
Hi. So we've got Anne Belliveau here with us today. I'm Victoria Rose, and you can find me at openandawesome.com. So I'm a coach who works with people who are starting out in the world of polyamory and open relationships, and I help them overcome all the pitfalls so they can just focus on having amazing relationships. And today I wanted to bring you and Belliveau to talk about ceremonies because I've known Anne for a while now, and when I started realizing what she does, which took me a while because I'm not going to go into how I know her, but and she started telling me about ceremonies, and I was really struck as to how important they are in general, and how in the poly community, because we don't fit into the same kind of like relationship types that other people do, ceremonies have kind of fallen by the wayside a lot, and how things can be transformed when we do bring ceremonies into play, as some people are starting to do. So I thought it would be great to bring Anne in to tell us a bit more about ceremonies, how you can work with ceremonies, and what effect they can have on you. So, um, welcome, Anne.
Thank you.
So great to have you here. So, Anne, can you tell us a bit about what you do and how you came to be working with ceremonies?
Great, sure. Well, I'm really, really happy to be here first, and so thank you for inviting me on because I really feel like it's an important subject that a lot of people don't know a lot about. There's incredible opportunity with ceremony that's been really overlooked by our society, and so I kind of came to ceremonies pretty naturally. I was doing very informal ceremonies from a young age for family and friends, and then professionally in different jobs that I was doing. And but it wasn't until my wedding ceremony in 2003 and in the creation of that ceremony. So I designed and wrote that entire ceremony myself, and it was really, really meaningful to me. But what happened in that was that it was not only meaningful to me, it was hugely meaningful to the community gathered, which ended up being very large, much more than we originally intended. And so we had this for many years, people continued to come up to me and speak about how moved and touched and affected they had been by the ceremony because of the kind of love and truth and clarity that came through the words that were really from our hearts. And so I was really inspired by how much it affected people and how much it affected my life, having the opportunity to go deep with my loved one, my husband, and come to a whole new level of clarity about who we are, who we wanted to be in our relationship through the process of creating this ceremony. So in 2007, my community actually approached me and asked me to start doing this ceremonial work professionally. And so I was ordained through an interfaith church that wants to support independent people in providing these sorts of ceremonies for people in their own communities. And at that time, since then I've done wedding ceremonies as well as commitments and renewals, blessing ways to help mothers prepare for birth, baby blessings, funerals, rites of passage, all different kinds of ceremonies to help us honor the important stages in our lives, the important changes, and the important commitments and intentions that we have. And what I have seen consistently is that a ceremony that is truly alive, one where we have very powerful conscious intention in what we say and what we do, creates a transformational effect for people, and it inspires and guides not only those people who are in the ceremony perhaps the couple in a wedding ceremony, for example, but also everyone who's there gathered, and it touches people's communities on a very profound level. And so that's why I'm still here today doing this work, because I just find it to be so meaningful and so beautiful.
Wow, that's great. So it's amazing that it was actually your community who said, "And we want you to do this."
Yeah, it was actually my best friend who called me, and she said she was so moved by my wedding ceremony, and when she was preparing to get married, she called me and said, I believe that you need to do this work for other people. You've got a gift, and it should be shared, and it's kind of not fair of you to just keep it inside, so I want you to help design and officiate my ceremony. And I said, no.
Oh.
Because I was afraid I was going to ruin her wedding, and I was like, no, 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 no. And she said, I have known you for 18 years, and if you deny me this, you're going to be in big trouble. So I couldn't say no, and so I said yes, and it was an incredible experience and started me on a journey with many, many more people. And so thanks to Mary Jo for helping get me out there and to be able to share this work with other people. And she really felt that it was unique, and that many people aren't being served by their communities, by their religious institutions. Many people are, but there's a growing number of people who are not, but who still want the opportunity to celebrate and to honor and to empower their intentions and the changes in their lives in a meaningful way, and that those people deserve that.
Mm-hmm. I really think they do, and I can see so many people who aren't being served by what's existing out there. So, yep. I think like when I started to hear about this, I was really confused as to what constituted a ceremony, because in my head, kind of like ritual and ceremony were kind of like mixed up. So can you explain a bit about what ceremony is and why you think it's important?
Yeah, it's actually a really great question, because it's great to get down to basics, right? A ceremony is, well, at its simplest, a ceremony is simply any act that is undertaken with conscious purpose or intent. So a ceremony could be really simple. For example, the lighting of a candle in honor of a loved one who's passed, which could be something that a single individual person might do. And in that case, it might be the same as a ritual. So a ceremony can be something very simple, but here's the thing about a ceremony. Because it is an act that is undertaken with conscious intent, its effect is transformational. So it creates a space in which there's an opportunity for a shift, an inward shift, and sometimes also an outward shift. And because of this opportunity to change, to step into something new, to create a space for a new level of honoring or acknowledgement of a specific intention, there is a transformational effect in any ceremony, be it small or large. And of course, that transformational effect is magnified when a ceremony is done in the context of a community where it is witnessed by people who are important to you, by your loved ones, your family, your friends, your colleagues, the people who are in your community. So when this act of conscious intent is undertaken and is seen by others, is recognized by others, is acknowledged by others, there's a magnification of its effect on you. It becomes more powerful, becomes more real, and the transformational effect of that is strengthened and empowered.
Mm-hmm. So it's the intention that creates that shift, and having so many people there being like kind of like witnesses and parties to that. Gives it more.
Yes, exactly. And so that contrasts with, so it's different from any old action because it is undertaken with consciousness. There's a purpose behind the action. You don't just bumble into it. And that's one of the things that's happened now with some ceremonies, and why many people aren't comfortable with ceremonies, because they feel that they're mechanical, they're formulaic, they're going through the motions, because the conscious intent that may have been there originally in some of those ceremonies, but it's kind of seeped away. And so now when people engage in this ceremony, they don't really know why they're doing it. It's not connected to them personally. It's not an expression of their feelings, of their values, of their beliefs, of their intentions. And so there's a disconnection, and it feels fake. It feels like it's not real. And so that's why a lot of people, I think quite naturally, have gravitated away from those ceremonies. That for them, if you have that experience of a ceremony, that ceremony, in my opinion, is dead to you. It's a dead ceremony. It's not living. It's not infused with the conscious intention. And it's that conscious intention that creates that transformational effect for people and allows it to be really meaningful, allows it to be connected to who you are and an expression of your truth, an expression of your heart.
Or what I see very often is that there seems to be conscious intent is just aligned to other people's expectations rather than to your own expectations. And I think
yes,
that's why so many people are not happy with them.
Yes, exactly. So sometimes what has happened in some institutions is that ceremonies have become, they've created formulas for them that then people step into. And sometimes that works for some people because their personal values are lined up enough with that formula. But if your personal intentions or values or beliefs are not lined up with the intention of that formulaic ceremony, then it's going to fall far short of meaningful for you. And I would also say that one of the things that I have seen to be most powerful and meaningful for people, that's always a surprise to them, is that the process of creating the ceremony itself, not just performing it, not just the doing of it, not just up at the altar saying, I do, the actual process of creating the ceremony is so rewarding and enriching and nourishing and deepening. Because it's a process of clarifying your intentions. It's a process of reflecting and going deeper and saying, why is this important to me? What is it that I want to get out of this? So for example, let's take a wedding or a commitment ceremony. The intention of it at first seems really obvious. We are getting married. We are making let's say, lifetime romantic commitment to partnership, and that's what we're doing. But what does that mean to you? Why do you want to do that? What do you need to say to this other person? Who do you want to be in this relationship? How do you want this relationship to serve both of you? What are your values and your beliefs in this? And even what you're committing to. There's many different forms of commitment in wedding ceremonies. There's traditional year and a day ceremonies. There are eternal commitment ceremonies. There's lifetime. There are actually some things to really clarify. And in the process of doing that, people, so in the case of a couple who are committing, they have an opportunity to deepen their understanding of each other, to have conversations that they might not otherwise have. Like, for example, when I was creating my ceremony with my husband, and we were talking about, well, what are we committing to, and whether or not we were making a lifetime commitment and these sorts of things. And it brought up a whole conversation about how we felt about, divorce, and how we felt about the other person having other partners. And it was a conversation that we'd never had the opportunity to have because it just hadn't really come up. And we had an opportunity to really clarify some things and to understand the other person so much better. So it can be really incredible, the deepening process. And for example, I'm thinking right now of a renewal ceremony that I did with a couple, and the ceremony was, well, the process of creating the ceremony was this powerful healing experience for both of them, but especially for the wife. This renewal ceremony was done 43 years after their original marriage. So they got married, I don't know, early 60s or something, and she had gotten pregnant before they were married. Both families were deeply religious, and she was terribly shamed. She was not allowed to wear a white dress, and there was so much stigmatism for her associated with her wedding. She didn't get to, the words she said were not her own. She had to have it in an environment that she didn't feel aligned with, and so it was a real breakdown for her. And while her marriage was great, and she had a wonderful relationship, this thing had hung on, this shame had hung on for a really long time for her. So when they decided to do this renewal through the process of creating this ceremony, there were these layers of healing for her. And some of the things that we did in the ceremony and some of the words that were said helped to heal that wound for her. And she wore a white dress, and it was really powerful for her. And so her sense of worthiness as a person was hugely enhanced by this process of creating this ceremony. And of course the ceremony itself was incredible and was beautiful, and they had a huge community of family and friends who came, because they had all the aunts and uncles and the cousins husbands and wives, and everybody was there. And it was so touching to them because they all knew the story, and it moved them. And people were coming up to me afterwards just crying with how much it had touched their hearts, to hear them speak these things. And they acknowledge each of their children in the ceremony, and different important friends and family were able to be acknowledged through having them do different readings and different parts of it. And it was just such a pure expression of their love and their intentions and who they wanted to be in the world. And for her, it was a way of claiming her power back and of saying, I am worthy, and I am beautiful, and I am a good person, and this is who I am. And so that's just an example of how powerful the process itself can be for people. And so it's quite different than a formula ceremony where you simply step in and read your lines. Instead, it's a real engagement of your heart, and you get to create it any way you want. You get to decide what this ceremony is going to do for you, how it's going to serve you. And that's why I feel that ceremonies, when you design them yourself, can serve people that sort of don't fit within the little box of the status quo. And so it's, I've worked with people with blended families, people who, have older children they're wanting to acknowledge. It's just incredible to have the opportunity to stand in your power about what is true for you, to say, this is who I am. This is what I believe. This is what I know to be true. And then especially when you're talking about families, whether it's welcoming a new baby or welcoming a new spouse into a family, to say, this is who this person is to me. I want you all to see this. I want you to recognize this. I want you to hear what I'm committing to. It's so powerful and so moving for those people doing it, but for everyone who's present, because you can feel when someone's being really authentic, when someone's truly expressing deep feelings of their heart in that way. You can feel it, and it is so moving and inspiring.
Yeah, That's just awesome. I hadn't like considered that because I've been to a few ceremonies that have had. I mean, I've never had the luck of being at a ceremony you've officiated, but I've seen some certain similar ones, and it's just, yeah, what you were saying of like standing up and saying what you believe in and having everyone witness it and accept it. And it's just, you're showing who you are and standing in your power, and you're having everyone say, yes, that's right, we support you. And that is just
We
amazing.
honor you and we celebrate you. And one of the things that I see in has been happening a lot in ceremonies recently, both thinking of a wedding ceremony recently and a blessing way, which is when you help a mother who's pregnant prepare for birth and sort of become empowered and ready for her rite of passage of birthing, to ask for the support of the community in the ceremony. And to, so I'm thinking of this blessing way that we just had a few weeks ago, and each person brought a bead, and they said, along with the bead, they said like a statement of power or a prayer for her, about her ability to give birth, and they wrote those down, and then they strung all of those beads onto a necklace, and she asked for them to hold space for her, to support her. She had them take a candle home to light when she went into birth, so that in spirit they would be there with her. And it was so supportive and so nourishing for her. She called me a few days later and she said, I just feel so much better about this now. I feel so much more solid in myself, like I've got people around me who are here with me. I don't feel so alone in this. And just to hear all of those powerful women, many of whom were mothers, speak about their experience and really believe in me and believe in what I could do and offer their support to me, it gave her a boost that she really needed at that time. She needed to know that there were people there for her as she was about to pass through this threshold, which birth is always a journey into the unknown, and it can feel really scary. And so to have that support was just so incredible for her. And so I think the opportunity, and what's so neat about that is that it's not only a gift to the person or the couple, for example, or the family who might be receiving the support, but it is a huge blessing and a incredible opportunity for those people who are asked to support.
And
You feel so special.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being at a friend's wedding where it's like it was like held in a barn, and she had been involved in music, so there were like people with their fiddles, and she came in with three other people, like, on her violin, and they were singing all the way to the altar. And it was just, I was just like, I looked at her and I was just like tears streaming down my face, and I was like, this is just so beautiful, you know. Apparently it set lots of people off. I'm going to cry again.
Crying is allowed.
It was just amazing. But I can't put my finger on it. It's why do we feel like this? Why is it such a gift to everyone else as well?
Well, because I think we recognize that truth, the beauty in them, the truth in them, the love in them. When a person is sharing from their heart so openly, it's naturally moving to us. It causes us to remember the beauty and the truth in ourselves, and it calls that out of us. It calls the best out of us. It calls the part of us who's able to be there for someone else. It calls forth the part of us who can believe in someone else. And it's really amazing. I had the honor to co-officiate my sister's wedding this fall, which was really, really special. And one of the incredible things that they did in this ceremony was to have everyone who was gathered, which was over 100 people, hold hands in a circle around them. And to actually say out loud, they asked to the community, would the community support them in upholding their commitments to each other, in being the kind of people that they wanted to be with each other and in their lives. And the community had an opportunity to say, yes, I do. I support you in that, to say that out loud. And it was, I mean, you should have seen people, they were just sobbing, like to be part of that inner circle, to hold that space for them, to believe in them that way, and to it's like you're given this special job to support them in this way and to recognize who they are. And it's just so powerful. And the thing, we're giving lots of examples about different ceremonies, and the thing I want to say is that it's not that any one of these individual what I like to call ceremonial elements, like a thing you might do, whether it's holding hands in a circle or putting the beads on the string at the blessing way. These ceremony elements, it's not like any one of these things has some kind of special or magic quality in and of itself. There's not a list of like the best ceremonial elements to use. The ceremonial elements are simply a vehicle for the expression of your intention. And so what is so powerful is the intention being expressed so authentically and so clearly. And so it's the process of designing a ceremony that expresses that for you. And in order to do that, you have to go through a process of clarifying what those intentions are.
So yeah, so it's not the formula, it's the intention that's important. And
yes.
As you were talking about like the support from the community, what I was just thinking is of all the people out there who have problems with their families, or who may have people who aren't really supportive of their relationships. So do you have experience in working with people like that? And how can that work out?
Yeah, actually, I think that ceremonies can be a huge support for that. And really powerful, because when people that you love and care about don't understand, agree, or respect your choices, it's really hard. It's really uncomfortable, and it can make it difficult to stand in your power. So sometimes when those things are happening, people avoid the subject. They kind of try and not bring it up, gloss over it. They kind of bend their values to fit in a little bit more to the box that this loved one has for them, and it doesn't feel good. It's really out of integrity. It's not being true to who we are. And so that's a really difficult place to stand. And so one of the gifts of a ceremony is that it supports us in stepping into our power and acknowledging for ourselves who we are, what we believe in, what is valuable to us, what our intentions are, what our commitments are, who we want to be in this world, who we are in this world. And so, and there's all, as we've talked about, there's all different types of ceremonies, but a ceremony can have any specific intention, and ultimately it is stating an intention. It is expressing an intention. And so there's an opportunity when you're in a situation where there's a lot of people who don't support your intention, that you need extra support. You need help in getting stronger in standing in your truth, even if they don't like it. And so gathering together a group of a small community, even if it's only 3 people who do understand, who do believe in you, who do respect and honor your choices, and doing a ceremony to acknowledge that can be really, really powerful. Even doing one just by yourself can be really powerful. But I have seen time and again that when you have other people with you, it makes it more real. There's an amplification. You really step into your intentions in a much more powerful way when you are being witnessed by other people.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So do you recommend only inviting people who are supportive of you? Or do you think like there's a healing and a kind of like a coming together through the ceremony and the ceremony process with maybe like family or friends who may not have understood it before?
There's certainly the opportunity for that, and I wouldn't ever want to give a blanket answer to that because it would have to be on a case-by-case basis. But there is definitely the opportunity for ceremonies to be an opportunity for healing to happen and for family to see you for who you are, maybe for the first time, to really get it, to get what this means to you.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just seeing it from the outside in a way that you know is just a label that they don't understand. Instead, a ceremony that is done with, that's really in a living ceremony, that's truly done with heart, you are expressing these deep feelings and deep commitments and powerful intentions, and that is moving to people. People get that. They feel that. So I'm thinking of a renewal, a different renewal that I did, and one of the things that came up in this renewal was that the bride or the wife, she was estranged from her biological father and had a stepfather who she was very close with. But her estrangement with her biological father was creating an estrangement with her sisters, who wanted their biological father to start to become a part of their family. And so as she was getting closer into the ceremony, because it was a renewal, they were doing a lot of things to honor different members of the family, her children, her parents, his parents, and it came up against this issue, this family issue in this place where there was this long-standing, lifelong rift between her and her biological father. And in the process of the ceremony design, we did a lot of deep healing work around this and really helped her to see for herself what her intentions were with her father, with that relationship, what she wanted, and what she needed the ceremony to be, and whether or not she wanted him to be present. And it was incredible for her. It created a huge deepening of her own self-understanding in this great shift, and there was a big healing for her family that happened as a result of this ceremony, and both fathers being in it and her being able to acknowledge them in different ways, in a way that felt, in integrity for her. And it was really, really powerful. And it could have gone many different ways, however her father was or was not involved, but the important part was that she had this opportunity for deepening her own clarity about her intentions in her relationship with him, and how she wanted him in her life or not, and what that meant. And it was pretty heated for a while, and it was incredibly deep work. And so I think there can be amazing opportunity and ceremony for people who have estrangements with family members to get clearer on what it is that they really want out of these relationships, to be able to speak that with greater clarity, and to be able to stand in who they are with them. And I think that's part of what happened with this woman I'm thinking of in this ceremony, was that through the process of that deepening of clarity, ultimately she just got stronger in who she was. And then as a result of that, who he was, like, he could kind of be however he was, and she could choose whether to have him as a part of it. And without getting into the huge details about all of that, it was a really amazing process. And so it's actually one of the things that I hope for with a increased awareness of the transformational potential of ceremony for people who are living, and there's so many more of us living lives outside the box, you know, with blended families or multiple spouses, or there's all different kinds of family constellations happening now. And to the opportunity, those kinds of families even more need to be served by these ceremonies so that they can clarify their intentions, so they can stand in their power and say, this is who I am, this is my family, this is my life, this is what I want, and to invite their community in so that their community can recognize that, can understand that, and be given an opportunity to support them in that and to celebrate that with them.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, because I do think, like, what you were saying, that a lot of the times the families don't get it because they don't really see it, you know, especially when it comes to relationships. It's just like, oh, this is like this thing that you do, or in our case, this is like this weird thing that you do over there, and I don't really want to know about that. But I think, like, ceremonies can be like this opportunity for them to witness what it's all about, and if they can see
Yes.
love, you know, they can see what's going on, and they can be behind it, because I think most
Yes.
families do want to be supportive.
Yeah, well, and ultimately, I mean, I think in the vast majority of cases, families want to be connected. They want to love each other. And, you know, when there's a disconnect, it's a disconnect on both ends. And what you were just describing reminded me of a wedding ceremony that I did. But one of the things that was really important in that ceremony was that this couple, it was a remarriage for one of them, and they were both practicing Buddhists. That's how they met, from families that were not Buddhist. And in fact, the husband's family was very devout Catholics, and his mother did not understand and refused to recognize him being Buddhist, even though I'd been practicing Buddhist for about 15 years, very, very seriously. And it was something that was really hard for him. Like, he felt like his mother did not understand him, did not recognize him, you know, was sort of belittled it, kind of like poo-pooed the whole thing, and like, come on, Sonny, to church, you know, and it just didn't respect who he was now as a person. And so, because Buddhism was part of what brought them together in their ceremony, the whole thing had huge Buddhist overtones, and they did some of the things that they would do in the Buddhist temple. There's certain prayers that are said. There's a certain way that things are done in the Buddhist tradition that they incorporated into their ceremony. And they did that because it was an expression of what was true for them, but because they also wanted to share their Buddhist faith with their parents who didn't understand or respect it. And so it was really, really powerful for them. It gave them this great opportunity to really stand in it, instead of like kind of avoiding the subject at dinner. It now became like, this is who we are, this is what we believe, this is what we do. They wore some more traditional Asian style garb, and it was very, very important for them. And this was a very small ceremony. There were only maybe 6 witnesses. It was a very intimate ceremony. And so every person who was there was actually asked to participate in some of the Buddhist ceremony. And it was really beautiful, because you could see that his mother started to get it, started to see what this was, and started to recognize it as something valid in and of itself. And you know, she simply had never really had the opportunity to see it for what it was, and to see who he was as a Buddhist, what it brought out in him, the kind of reverence, the kind of presence, the peacefulness, the heart that he really connected with through his Buddhist practice. And she was able to see it. She was able to see it in him. And so for them, their wedding was not only this opportunity to share their intentions about their relationship, but also share some of their spiritual intentions and beliefs with their community in a way that healed some discord that had been happening for years.
Wow. And you know, we've been talking about weddings a lot and commitment ceremonies. What other kinds of ceremonies are there available that we can do?
Mm. Well, you know, out in the world, there's lots and lots and lots of ceremonies. You know, and I think we're most familiar with weddings and funerals. Um, the ceremonies that I specialize in are all rites of passage. So they're all celebrating the changes that we go through in our lives. So, like the blessing ways I spoke about, helping women to prepare for birth. Naming ceremonies for new babies or baby blessings, rites of passage for coming of age into adolescence. I also did a rite of competency ceremony, which is actually at the 7-year change, acknowledging that time and honoring that time as a child moves from that very young childhood into a mature childhood. Funerals and trying to think if there's any others. I think those are the main ones. And sometimes I've helped people to do ceremonies that are more individual, like if they're going through a personal time of change, a personal transformation. So sometimes people, I haven't done this, but I have a colleague who has done helping people who have gone through a divorce to acknowledge, kind of like remarry themselves, acknowledge who they are now, what this new life that they're creating for themselves is. Also people in relationship with their businesses, taking a new stand in their business, making a new change. Some of these things are some, you know, more creative things that I've done with people. But the ceremonies that I find to be the most moving are those ceremonies that bring together the community, where people have an opportunity to share those powerful intentions and commitments before their whole community. So like a baby blessing or a baby naming ceremony can be so incredibly moving because it gives an opportunity, it not just to introduce the family to the new member, but to acknowledge, like I was thinking about a baby blessing I did this past summer, and it was really, really powerful for them and important for the mother in particular to have an opportunity to share with her family who she wanted to be as a mother, because it was kind of taking a departure from how she was raised, and she needed for herself to sort of step into her power about who she wanted to be as a mother and what she wanted for her child, what her intentions were, and to have the opportunity to invite her family to support her in that, and to, you know, acknowledge, you know, there's an opportunity, if some people do a tradition of godparents or honoring certain people to have a special role in the support and raising of that child, and those ceremonies give an opportunity to clarify those things. And it's especially more important when you're talking about blended families, and, you know, to be able to acknowledge, you know, this is the biological mother, but this is this other person, this is a stepmother, or this is a ex-spouse or someone who is going to have an important relationship with this child. And to be able to acknowledge that, to be able to state with clarity the intention of who they are and what their relationship is and why that's important to you, and have them have an opportunity to speak about that or to honor that in some way is really, really powerful for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was just thinking a lot about, you know, the poly community because that's who I serve,
Yeah.
of how, you know, we've been like outcast from a lot of the traditional ceremonies because of not fitting in. So how do you think poly people especially can benefit from kind of like designing and doing their own ceremonies?
Yeah, well, hugely, and this is part of why I was really, you know, we have gotten a lot of great conversations about this subject, because for the poly community and any other community of people who aren't, are taking a departure from the status quo. Anytime that you're doing that, you are needing to make a stand. You really, in order to do that, any person who is, in the poly community is there very consciously. You don't just fall into that because our society doesn't raise you up to fall into that, right? It's very intentional choice. And because there is a departure from the expected status quo of the society around you, it calls forth another level of clarity and conviction within you about who you are and how you choose to live your life. And the ceremony can support a deepening and a strengthening in that conviction. It gives an opportunity to clarify further exactly what those intentions are and what they mean to you in this specific situation, and gives you an opportunity to honor that, to celebrate that, to deepen and explain that, and share it with other people who may not know about it or may not fully understand, or who may have a skewed or biased perspective. When something is outside of your circle of experience, people, they don't get it, they don't understand. And so the opportunity to create your own ceremony gives you an opportunity to define yourself in a new and powerful way, and to share that with other people. So I personally believe that everyone benefits from a really conscious ceremony like this, but especially people who are in more, if you say, marginalized groups or outside of the status quo, really need the additional support of this, and their community needs it too. Their personal family, it's really, really helpful. It brings people together. It creates understanding between people, and it's a really beautiful process. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great, because I like, especially, I think like poly people are very good at like working on definition and clarifying what they mean and negotiating, or at least we try to be. But the part about like deepening that, because you're going to be standing in front of a group of people and talking about that and having the support from that community in being who you are and doing what you've decided to do, I think that's huge.
Yeah, I think it's really, really powerful. I think it would serve people in the poly community, and I think because they already have to have a level of real consciousness and intention about what they're doing, that it's a very natural step for people. And one of the other things about ceremony, because it allows you to step into your power in such a stronger way, is that it makes things more real.
Yes.
So while I don't know a lot about the polyamory community from my own experience, I would extrapolate that one of the things that may commonly happen is that some people in your community, family, friends, colleagues, simply won't acknowledge everyone who is in your partnership.
Yes.
Or simply, that there's kind of like a ignoring or a whitewashing of, all of that. And so the ceremony creates an opportunity to really state it clearly and to share that with other people in a powerful way.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens. I mean, usually they will pick one person who fits the bill most and say, this is your real partner, and everyone else doesn't really count. Which is why lots of people do commitment ceremonies, and sometimes they will, sometimes I'll be married to one person and then do a commitment ceremony with other people, and sometimes it is the spouse who joins the hands, for example, of the other two people that are committing, or variations thereof.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many incredible different possibilities for how ceremonies might unfold with the details of the ceremonial elements. But what is always going to be true is that when that ceremony design process is engaged in with intention, every single member of the family, of the romantic relationship constellation that's happening, has an opportunity to deepen their understanding with each other, and their clarify who they are and who they want to be in this, and it enhances your relationships, hands down. Like, it absolutely always enhances and strengthens your relationship. And then from that place, you have an opportunity to share that. And like we had talked about before, when you share from the heart, people really respond to that authenticity. They can feel the truth in your words. They can feel your heart. And it allows them to recognize things, sometimes for the first time, just like in the example of the couple who are Buddhist and their parents really recognizing who they were as Buddhists, not as this, canned idea of this is what a Buddhist looks like, and my son couldn't possibly be that. It allowed her to meet them, to see it for real, for what this means, what that breaks down to. It's not this word polyamory. Like, what does that mean in this situation? What does that feel like? Who are we? Who do we be? What are our intentions? What does this mean for our family? Is so incredible. And then to not only be able to share that clearly with your community, but to have the opportunity to have them honor that and celebrate that, and dare I say it, support you in that. Yeah.
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 And when you're designing a ceremony, who's involved? I mean, how many people? Where does it kind of end? Because there's so many people that are there participating in the ceremony itself, but who designs it?
Yeah, that's a great question. It does vary a little from situation to situation. Usually you would have all of the primary people who are involved. So if it's a wedding or a commitment ceremony, then the people who are making that commitment, whether that was 2 people or more, all those people would be there. There might be, for example, I'm thinking of a couple that had children from different marriages that were involved. While the children weren't part of the actual writing of the ceremony, there were some places where I helped the couple to clarify some of the things that they wanted to find out from their children. Like, were there things that their children wanted to get out of this ceremony? Were there things that their children felt they needed to say? Were there things that their children wanted to hear them tell them to assure them that, whatever that was going to mean? So it created the opportunity for a series of conversations with other people who were going to participate in the ceremony and were very important to the ceremony, but didn't necessarily need to be present at every meeting. I'm thinking of a baby blessing ceremony where really I did the work primarily with the mother because it was her brainchild and it was really most important to her. And so she would just check in with her baby's father and just kind of see if there was anything else that he needed, or if he felt, in line with it, in integrity with it. And it was fairly informal. And in other cases, both, the mother and the father are very involved in that process of writing the ceremony. So it does vary from different situation to different situation. And then if I'm actually leading the ceremony, sometimes I just help people to design the ceremony, and then they have somebody else officiate it. But if I'm there, then, of course, on that actual day, all of the people who are actually participating in the ceremony. You'll kind of go over it so everybody understands what their role is and the things that are going to be happening. But they don't have to necessarily be part of the design process, because it's really for the people who are undergoing this act for a conscious purpose, for a specific intent.
Yeah.
So it's those people who really need to be the ones to be designing and writing the ceremony. And my role in that process is to facilitate their clarity, because on some level they already know what it is they want to say. They already know what it is that they need this ceremony or want this ceremony to do for them. They might not know it on a conscious level yet, but it's there in their heart. And so my role is, through conversation and asking them deepening questions, help them to clarify what their intentions are and how they want the ceremony to serve them. And from that clarity of the intention, then we design a ceremony that helps to express that in a way that's really in alignment with their beliefs and values and those intentions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's the people who like care about it or who are involved who design it and you facilitate it. But I love what you said about, the kids of these couple just asking for what they needed their parents to say and what they wanted to say to their parents. It just seems like such a great thing to have everyone kind of like coming together.
Yes.
The whole family together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Oh, I'm loving this topic, and I'm aware that we could just go on talking forever.
Just get me going.
Yeah, and I've got lots of ideas about how, poly people could benefit from this, and I'm sure everyone watching is. But yeah, so I'm just thinking we could maybe wrap up. But before that, I did want to give people a chance to know where it is they can find you and how they can get in touch with you.
Great, yeah. Well, you can find out about things that are going on my Facebook page. And so that is Akasha, Akasha, Akasha Ann Belliveau. And you can see that name up at the top, but it's ANNEBELLIVEAU. So akashaannbelliveau.com/Facebook. And you can also just contact me directly at my email, and that's Ann Belliveau, and it's just my name, like you see up top, ANNEBELLIVEAU@gmail.com. So AnnBelliveau@gmail.com, and yeah, just shoot me out a line with any questions that you have. I'd love to share with you more about this topic and see if it's something that would serve you in your individual situation. So I'd really hope that our conversation today inspired some of you to give ceremony a new look and see how it might really support you with your intentions right now.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's great what you've shared, because I see so many people who see ceremonies missing and want to do ceremonies differently. So I think you've given us lots of thanks.
Great. Well, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.